and welcome to our beginner tutorial for Gimp as it relates to card making, scrapbooking, and crafting. Purpose of this video is to take you from opening the program for the very first time and knowing nothing about it to, by the end of this video, being able to create the card that you saw at the beginning credits in terms of creating it, also resizing and creating a template so you could recreate that card with different kits, as well as getting you to the point where you have taken all those parts and pieces, put them on pages so that you can print and have the most cost-effective way of printing as far as paper and ink usage. So let's dive right in. Let's open our program Gimp, which, as you can see, is version 2.1.32. So that is the most recent version as of the date of making this video. You can download that program from gimp.org. That is their website. And when you download it, you simply follow the install instructions so that way it's installed on your computer. And when you open it up, this is what you get. So this big center area is your working area. So think about that if you're used to crafting in physical paper. This is kind of like your kitchen table, or this is your crafting mat, whatever. This is your area to create in. Up here is your tools palette. So there's only a few of them out of these that we're actually going to use. It'll be very simple for you to follow. And over here is your layers palette, which we're going to talk about as we get further on into the video and how that works and how to understand it so that you can move things around and do things with it. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to create a new blank slate. Okay, so when we go up to, we go up to the word file, you left mouse click on it, you just move your cursor down over the word that says new, then you press your left mouse button and it opens up this little window. Now it comes up always in pixels. That's one of the things of Gimp that's kind of odd, but whatever, minor little things, right? Pixels means nothing to most of us in terms of size. We want to choose either inches or millimeters, depending on whether you're working in the imperial system or in the metric system. For this purpose, I'm going to be using the imperial system, and I want to just simply create an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So in order to change these numbers, just double left click on your mouse on it to highlight it, change it to 11, and press OK, and presto, we now have a blank work surface, which is 8.5 by 11. The reason I've chosen that, obviously if you're using the metric system, you want to choose A4 because that is the standard paper size, okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to start creating our card. And in creating our card, again, we'll go up to File, New, and we'll choose Inches. I'm going to create a 5 by 7 card. So the width is 5, height is 7, I click OK, and see how now I've got a second piece of paper up here? So this you can flick back and forth between, okay? The first one is our 8.5 by 11. Our second one is our 5 by 7, okay? And this will get a little more, because they're both white, it can be a little confusing, but it'll quickly change from that. So with our 5 by 7 background, we want to choose and put a paper on there. Now let's go into all of our files and folders, and I am going to be using our Olivia Rose collection for this card. So here we are in our Olivia Rose and in our FQB. So I want to choose a background paper. You obviously choose whatever you want. I happen to like the Jacquard wine, so we left mouse click on it and hold down your left mouse button, drag that onto the white working surface, and then let go of your button, your left mouse button, and there it goes. That's called drag and drop, and so that put it right in here for you. So what we see is the only area that's visible is the area of 5 by 7 for our card. But you see these little yellow dots down the side, okay? That tells you that your paper is actually way larger than your 5 by 7 visible area, okay? That's a good thing because our papers come to you as 12 by 12, and the reason we do it is exactly for this next step, is because you get to choose, by resizing this, you get to choose exactly what pattern size you want, okay? To do so, we're going to go over to our tools palette. Our very first tool that we actually, it's standard, that's the one that is turned on when you first open the program, is called your move tool, and that has the 4 little arrows as a crosshair. The one that we're looking for is our scale tool, which is the second one from the end. And actually, I think because I've worked in the program, I think it actually comes up as unified transform tool possibly. Don't let that fool you. There are there's multiple tools under the one button, okay? And you can see that when I just hover my mouse cursor over it, it actually brings up this little window to say, also on this exact area, you could change this tool to a rotate, a scale, a shear, a flip, blah, 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 okay? And how do we do that? Well, when your mouse is hovered over that button, press down and hold your left mouse button. It brings up the window like this. Keep holding your mouse button down until scale is highlighted, and then let go of your mouse button. Now, your default tool in that area is scale tool. And that's the one you're always going to want as your default tool in there. This is the one we want to use in order to change the size of our piece of paper and the pattern in it. Okay, so what in essence we're doing now is we are only dealing with what looks good to our eyes. So this is totally objective, okay? In order to scale this down, you can place your cursor, you can see mine moving around here. I just kind of put it somewhere in the lower left here. There's no right or wrong place for it. I put it there in the lower left, I push and hold my left mouse button down, and then I slide it diagonal up and to the right. So as you can see, it is scaling it up and down. It is scaling it down. Don't worry if you go by this. See how you can kind of see the white paper underneath? Not a big deal. We are going to be moving this around, so it's not a big deal. When you have moved this and you think, gee, you know what? That's about the size of pattern. I kind of like the way it looks. I like top and bottom and side to side, how much pattern is on there. Let go of your left mouse button so that you've stopped the scaling process. Now when you go into the middle, you'll see this square with the kind of the crosshairs in it. It almost looks like a little window. Put your cursor over top of it and you see it turns yellow. Okay, this is our move area. So once it turns yellow, it means, okay, yeah, that's the highlighted what's going to happen now. Again, I press and hold my left mouse button, and now I can move my piece of paper around. Okay? When we do this, we want to now place the paper on our 5x7 area where you think it looks good. Okay? So let's just drop it there, and when you're done moving, again, you let go of your mouse button. I can go back to it, highlight it again, hold down my left mouse button, and I can move it again. Okay, you can move it side to side, you can move it whichever way you want. Okay, so what I'm looking for is on the top here, see how there's kind of like 4 in the pattern? I want the sides to be matching, I want the top to be matching, but that's just me. This, like I said before, this is totally subjective. Now, as I've done that, I kind of look at the bottom and I see, I've kind of cut these off, right? So I actually should shrink it a little bit smaller. Okay, see this little window up here that has scale? You could actually scale it by just filling in the numbers, but most of us, you know, again, because it's subjective, you actually want to see what it's doing. There's a reset button, a readjust, and a scale. Because I know I've adjusted it, and I think, I want to do it a little bit more. I want to press reset, so it goes back to the beginning. Every single time you either enlarge or shrink an image, whether that's a background paper or an element, every time you do it, you lose a very little bit of resolution, okay? Which means when you print it out, it's not as crisp as the original. If you were to just, immediately out of the folder, you were to print something from us, it would be super, super, super crisp. Every time you manipulate that image, it loses and degrades a little bit, okay? That's just the nature of working with digital products. If you do it once, maybe even twice, chances are you're never going to notice the difference, okay? But this is a good practice to do so that way you always never lose the resolution, because you want those things to be every bit, and they are every bit the quality as if you bought this in the craft store. So, you know, that's the great thing about using digital. So let's rescale this again. Again, I have my scale tool turned on. I have it selected because I know the little black box is on it. I bring my mouse cursor to the bottom left of the screen. I press and hold my left mouse button, I move it to the upper right, and I'm scaling it so that way I can see exactly what I want. I go to the center, I highlight that square so that it's yellow. I press and hold my left mouse button, and now I move my paper around until I see this. Now I let go of it, and so there it is placed. What I was looking for, and again, this is, you do whatever you want, but I'm looking for about the same amount on both sides and on top and bottom. I found that. When you're happy with it, you press the scale, and now it's permanently locked at this size. So as you can see, those yellow lines have now moved in because I've actually taken a 12 by 12 paper and made it smaller. I think it was about 9 3/4 by 9 3/4 now. And it does scale. When you do scale it, it does both sides and top and bottom. They call it aspect ratio. So it does it all equally. It's not distorting the image at all. There's nothing you have to do and worry about for that. Now, the last thing we want to do before we're done with this piece of paper is, again, visible area of 5 by 7 shows that that's great, but it also shows us with these yellow dotted lines that our full paper is bigger than our 5 by 7, okay? And we want to make this just 5 by 7 so that way, when we put it onto our working area, okay, we just have a 5 by 7 piece of paper. So it's almost like cutting it out, if you will. How do we do that? We can turn on our move tool, because our move tool is our common tool. We right mouse button click. We move our cursor down to layer. And again, no mouse buttons are pushed down. We just kind of scroll there. We highlight layer, and then it brings up this other window. And then we highlight layer to image size, and we push our left mouse button, and presto. Now see where our yellow border is, that yellow dotted line? That means that the only paper left now, it's like it cut all the rest off. It's like you cut out a 5 by 7 piece of paper from that big 12 by 12. Okay? So now that is the exact car size we want. Again, we right click on this. We go to image, we go to edit, okay? And then we go to copy. So I'm copying that. I go back to my working area. I just go right in the middle of the paper. It doesn't really matter. I, again, right click on my mouse button. I hover my mouse cursor over edit, and it pops up this menu. I click paste. And there we go. Now I've taken that piece of 5 by 7 paper and I've put it on here. Again, with all digital things, they always want you to confirm it. It's one of the things that you always see that. When you delete something, are you sure you want to delete? That kind of stuff. When you copy and paste, you'll come down on your layers palette and you see how these two buttons are highlighted in green. This first one is creating a new layer. You want to click that. That's almost like your yes button. Like, okay, I've pasted this piece in here. I say yes. It now creates a new layer for you. Okay? So let's talk about layers for one quick second while we're here. Now I can move this around on here wherever I want to place it. This piece of paper is a layer. So think of layers like actual sheets of paper. Okay, so our white background is sheet 1. Now we've put this jacquard wine as sheet 2. It's now on top. Okay, so think about it like you had 10 pieces of paper, and the first one went down, the second one went down. That's exactly how layers work. It's a sequence like that, one after the other. You can move them around. So if you thought, oh, you know what, I wanted this piece of paper above this one, you simply just hold your left mouse button down, click on it, and move it up one. It's that simple, right? So think about it like a filing system of pieces of paper. That's what a layers palette is. Okay? So now we're going to want another piece of paper in the inside of this here, right? So we're kind of like making a mat. So what do we need to do? We want to create another new working piece. So we click on File, we go to New, we click on New, we click on our inches again, and we know that this is 5 by 7. Typically, everybody's a little different, but I like to leave a 1/8 inch space on the sides and on the top, okay? So if I leave 1/8 of an inch on the top and 1/8 of an inch on the bottom, that's a total of 1/4 of an inch. And again, if we're 5 by 7, that means I want this to be 4.75. I've removed 1/4 of an inch. And I want this to be 6.75 to remove 1/4 of an inch. I press OK, and here we go. We've created another new working area. And this is only 4 by 6. Okay? So, again, we want to have our paper. I kind of like this lace pink, so from the Olivia Rose collection. Again, I press and hold my left mouse button down on the lace pink paper, and I move my mouse so that I drag it onto the white area. I let go of my mouse button, and presto, there it is. So I've now placed that on that 4 by 6, or 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 area. Again, our yellow lines are way out here telling us that the paper is quite a bit larger than the actual visible area. We want to scale the pattern down. So again, I come up to my tools palette. I left mouse click on my scale tool. So that one is highlighted. We could tell because it has the dark color on it. I go to the bottom left of my screen. I press and hold my left mouse button. I scale it. And as I watch it go down, I think, you know what? That looks pretty good. I let go of my left mouse button to have a look at it. Now I go to the center square box. I make it yellow. Make sure I hover over it to make it yellow. I press and hold my left mouse button, and then I get to move my paper around so that I think, ooh, that. Right there. I like that. That's everything. So I'm happy with it. I now press scale, and it has now permanently made my paper that size. Now again, I want to make sure this is this visible area. I want my paper to be cut out just to this visible area. So again, I'll just choose my move tool to make sure I don't make any other changes with this piece of paper. I right click, I go down to layer, and I go down to layer to image size. I press my left mouse button, and there are my yellow dotted line. That's what I'm looking for to know that, okay, that is just my piece of paper is now cut down to the visible area only. So again, I want to move that onto my working area. So I right click on it. I go to edit and copy I select. Then I go to my working sheet. I right click on my mouse. I scroll down to edit, and I click paste. Look at how it pasted it right in there. It even centered it on the other one for me. How nice was that, right? So you don't have to move it around and get it just right. It does it all for you. The last thing I do in order to confirm that, yes, that is what I wanted to do, is I press that layer button down in the bottom, and there we have it. Now, I'm going to show you one other tool here. As you can see, it's kind of small. It's a little small for my eyes, and I'm not wearing my glasses right now, but I'm going to go over to the very last tool, and that is our magnifying glass, which is our zoom tool. I'm going to select that. I'm just going to simply go on my white sheet of paper here, and I'm going to press my left mouse button and see how I blew it up. It's a little bit better to work with, isn't it? I can blow it up again if I want, and then you can see you can move this up and down. If I've blown it up too far, I want to, if you're using a Windows keyboard, it is the Control key. If you're using a Mac, it is the Command key. You press and hold your Control or Command key, and now you press your left mouse button again, and it goes into the negative zoom, or to zoom out. So I just zoomed in one because it's just easier to work with, isn't it? Okay? So I choose my move tool once again. I always want to have my move tool selected. That's your default always tool, so you're not changing anything inadvertently or whatever, right? If I have my move tool on, I'm just not paying attention, and I happen to click on my left mouse button and, oh no, I moved this. I don't want to do that. I go up to edit, see undo move layer, choose that. So that's like going backwards one thing. So don't ever worry about, oops, I made a mistake. You can always go up to edit and undo. Okay? So the last thing we want to do is create a piece of paper for the inside here. This piece of paper, I go up to, again, click File and New so that we can create that new size. I'm just going to kind of guess here. I'm going to say it's about 3.5 inches wide by 4.75 inches height. I'll click OK. And what I want to use for a paper is I like this little flower. Okay. So again, let's go back here. I put my mouse cursor on top of the little flower paper in my FQB Olivia Rose folder. I press and hold my left mouse button. I drag it down to the white area on my working space in Gimp, and I let go of my mouse button and it places it in there for me. Okay? Now, I want to scale this, so I choose my scale tool, and again, I press and hold my left mouse button. I'm getting it down to where I think, you know what, the flower size is about right. I kind of like that look. Now I go up to that center square, make it yellow by just hovering my mouse cursor over it, and I press and hold. Once it's yellow, that center square is yellow, I press and hold my left mouse button. Now I can move my paper around to what I like. As you can see, it's not quite enough. Okay, I wanted it a little bit smaller. You know what? When it's a small adjustment like this, I'm simply going to scale it again. There we go. We can see that was enough. And that is the look that I wanted. Okay, I will now press, before I do, I'm just going to bring that other top flower into my view. I'm going to press scale. So now it has permanently made that. I'm just going to, because I had zoomed in, see how those little yellow borders are there, even though you couldn't see them because I had zoomed in, right? I just wanted to show you that so you know that's there. It's all working the same as the other ones did. It's just because we're zoomed in here that you don't see it. But I want to make sure that I then come down, I right click on my paper, I come down to layer, I come down to layer to image size, I press my left mouse button, and there we go. I now have just this side visible area that is the only piece of paper that is there. I've cut out that piece of paper to that 3.5 by 4 3/4 inch size. So I'm going to choose my move tool again, just to always be on my move tool when I'm not doing something specific. I am now going to right click on that paper. I'm going to choose edit. I'm going to choose copy. I'm going to go back to my working card. Okay, and again, right click, move my mouse cursor over the edit word. I don't have any buttons pressed down. That pops up this screen. I go over to paste, and then I press my left mouse button and it puts it in there. Okay, again, I like this. I think, yeah, that's good. I want this. I press this first green button, which is our layer button. It turns it into its own layer, and there we have it. Okay, now, you may be looking at that and you may say, okay, I was just guessing here as to what size I wanted that paper. I wasn't 100% sure, okay? And if you looked at it and you said, you know what, I actually don't like it. I would like it a bit bigger than this. This was 3.5 by 4 3/4. I kind of want it maybe 4 by 5, just guessing. Okay, tell you what, let's come over to our layers palette again. Just like anything else, when I go to a tool and I press my left mouse button on it, I've highlighted it, and I know that because it's highlighted in that black dark. The same thing is true on your layers palette. So if I'm on my layers palette and I click on this layer, which is my Jacquard wine, that is my background paper. When I have my move tool turned on, when I have my move tool turned on, this is how I select my different layers, okay? I can click on them and highlight them and see how the little yellow dots are moving around. So now I can move that one around, okay? We'll move it back into spot here. There's my Jacquard, okay? I can move that one around if I want. Easy to do, right? Okay? Same thing, my little flower paper. I can move that one around if I want. Okay? Now, the one way to do this is to say, if I don't like that piece of paper, I don't really want that anymore. Let's go down to the bottom of the layers palette. At the very end, you'll see an X. When you hover your mouse over it, it says delete this layer. Press that. Boom. Okay? There we go. I've deleted the layer. It no longer exists on my card. It was that easy. I wiped it out. When I go up here, I say, well, okay, this isn't going to be the right size, so this isn't going to work for me. See the little X in there? Boom. Hit that. Okay? When you see this come up, it will say discard changes, save as, or cancel. You want to discard changes. You just say, no, I'm fine deleting that. I don't want it anymore. Now, when I go back to my working copy, I still want to put that little flower paper in here. So how do I do that? We create a new one again. So new inches. Again, this was 3.5 by 4 3/4. Let's make this 3.75 by 5. Okay, so there's my paper. Okay, I go back to my Olivia Rose. That's my little flower. I still like the paper. It's just the size I didn't like. So I press and hold my left mouse button and I drag it onto my white area. I'm going to mention one thing here that I forgot to mention way early in the video, and I apologize. It was something I had turned off in Gimp. Whenever you do this, you're going to have a window pop up and it's going to say, do you want to keep this or do you want to convert? Do you want Gimp to convert? You always want to choose keep, okay? We don't want Gimp monkeying with anything that we put in here. We want it to keep its original, that the way we designed it. You want to keep your images as originals, the way it was designed. You'll also see in there is a little checkbox that says, do not show this again. Guess who checked that box? Me. And so that's why it's not coming up for me anymore, but you're getting it every single time you drag a paper in here. Check off that box that says, don't ask me this anymore. I never want Gimp to convert anything. I will do it myself, thank you. I want it always to keep. Okay? Sorry for not mentioning that earlier. So, getting back on track, there is that paper in here. We are going to want to select our scale tool. And again, go just anywhere on the page. Press and hold your left mouse button. Scroll to the upper area till you get to the flower size. Really, I'm watching the flower size here and think, that's about the right flower size that I like. Move my mouse cursor over that center box. Make it yellow. Press and hold my left mouse button. And there we go. I can move this to exactly what I want for a visible area. Like that. And I push scale when I'm happy. Okay? Now again, we'll just choose our magnifying tool and I'll zoom one out. Okay, so that there we go. So we can see, my paper's still too big. I got a step still that I have to do in here. So again, I press my right mouse button, which brings up this menu. I come down to layer, and then I go to layer to image size, and I press my left mouse button, and now it has cut that piece of paper out. So I only have this or whatever size I made this here, 3 3/4 by 5 piece of paper that I have cut out. Again, I want to move it onto my working area. So I press my right mouse button. I come down to edit and I press my left mouse button when I get to copy. I click on this window to make that my working window now. I right click. I come down to edit. I go to paste. Now I press my left mouse button and there it is. Last thing I do is I say, do I want to make this and confirm that I want this as a layer? I click it and I say yes. So now there it is. And that actually I like, right? I think that's a good size for that. Okay? So that is how we make these papers. Okay? We will not delete these. We want to keep these because we're actually going to turn these into templates at the end. But I will turn them into templates for you and show you how to do that. So you never have to actually make these. You'll be able to go in and just open your 5x7 template, put your paper on it, and away you go. You don't always have to create a new if you don't want to. You can always have a template. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to put my main element on here. Okay, and for my main element, I am going to choose from our new knickknacks. We had a knickknack Olivia Rose, and for those of you who haven't seen it yet, here's our knickknack Olivia Rose, which gives you fabulous main elements in here. Okay, I know that this is a decoupage element. Okay, and by that, what I mean is there's the main element that I want to use. But Mary Fran, inside the knickknacks, has given me this happy birthday. She's given me the flower cluster, as well as the red flower here, as already pre-done items for decoupaging. Here's the key to it, is when we scale and we shrink things like we've done with our paper, we want to make sure that each of these things stays in the same proportion. So how do we do that? Like, do I have to remember percentage or everything else? We've got an easy way to do that. We come over to our layers palette. We click on, we obviously are on the big little flower, okay? But you would always want to just click on the top, okay? Because again, I want my next layer, let's just do it real quick here. I'll just grab and pull this word label in here so that you can see what I'm talking about. Obviously, we want this to be the top of our card. So if this is like pieces of paper stacked one on another, we want this to be our next top layer, okay? So what we're going to do is, remember that button down here that that was green and we used it to create a layer when we were putting our papers on? The one right next door to it, if you hover your mouse cursor over it, it says create a new layer group. Please left mouse click on it and you see layer group, okay? What a layer group is, okay, we've got individual pieces of paper. Now we have a layer group. So within that, let's just say these are receipts, okay? So this one is your hotel, this one was for gas, this one was for, I don't know, something else, right? Something else you bought. Say your layer group is all the meals you bought. Now you have a folder for just your meals. Okay, so every single receipt goes into that folder. So within this folder, I want to put in my word label. Okay, so that's the first piece. Okay, and when I put it in, see how it's indented? That means it's inside that folder. Okay, you want to make sure you see that. I also want that next piece, which is this label circle. Okay, because that's the next piece that goes in, right? That's that happy birthday, that's my next one. Then I also want the flower cluster, and I want, okay, so let's bring that one in. And again, to bring them in is the exact same. I click on the item, I press and hold my left mouse button, I drag it onto my working surface, I let go of my mouse button, and it puts it in there for me. So right now, I have this flower, I have, and you can, okay, there's a couple things I'm going to show you here. Let me go back. When you're trying to choose, now that you've got a bunch of layers on top of each other, when you're selected on your move tool, you'll see where it says move layer, selection, or path. Path won't mean anything to you. That's for something completely different. If for whatever reason it is on top of selection, see how my move tool, I'll put it over the white piece of paper here. My move tool has all the symbols like the crosshair and then the little square in the bottom right, but there's also a circle with a line drawn through it. That's meaning you can't use that item with this tool, okay? You can't do that, okay? So if you're thinking, well, I've got this turned on and nothing's moving. Why won't it move anything? Go back up here, select layer. You always want to have layer turned on. Okay? So now you can select the layer a couple of different ways. You can simply press and hold your left mouse button, see how it selected that layer and it moved it around. But sometimes you're trying to grab one layer and it's grabbing the wrong one. Just come over, turn it on like this so you know what layer. See how it has that yellow dotted line around it? That's telling you what layer is active and which one it's going to choose for you, okay? So, here we go. How do we resize all these so that because when Mary Fran created them and when you get them in your folder, everything, as you can see, let me just put these on top so you'll see this. See how this matches identically? Mary Fran's done all the hard work, so you don't have to worry about that. But when you resize something, you have to worry about it all being resized at the exact same ratio, so to ensure that it's all going to fit together when you print this out. And your flower up here isn't going to be left big and everything else was shrunk, okay? That's the reason we created the layer group. Because again, it's a folder. Everything happens to that one folder, okay? So when we see this created, you'll see how there's a little eyeball. The eyeball, if you click that, see how it turns it off? It makes it invisible. The next thing is a lock button, which you won't use much. Okay, that's for future reference. You don't need that. Then there's a minus sign there. Click left mouse button, click the minus sign. It now turns it in and takes it, kind of closes up the folder, so you don't have to worry about seeing everything, and that's inside the folder individually. Now, see how that big box is around the entire area. So that means what we're going to do to this, when we go up and choose our scale tool, it's going to work to this whole box. Okay? Now, when we use our scale tool, we have to be in the inside of this box. Okay? So when we place our cursor, make sure you placed it inside this box. And the other thing to note before we do it is make sure that your main element that you're going to be placing is actually kind of somewhat in the area that you want it. So as you shrink this item down and you scale it, you'll be able to see the view and know when to stop, know how far you've scaled it down, and know that that's what you want. So let's go ahead and scale this entire thing. So again, I press and hold my left mouse button. It brings up all these little squares around it. That is normal. You hadn't seen it before because we've been so zoomed in, but that's actually lets you know that you're in scale mode. Let's scale this down to about like that. I let go of my left mouse button. I now go up to the center square, press and hold my left mouse button so that I can move this around. And I think that's a little small. Let's reset that for a second. Let's go down like that. Move this into place. And I think, you know what? I think that's it. Okay? Press scale. Okay? Now, how do I get all that indented so I can see each individual layer? I come over to my layers panel. I click on that plus sign. And again, it opens that folder up for me. So now I can grab each individual item again. Okay? Because this is a knick-knack and you have all these pieces, and these pieces are for decoupage only, just move them off. Sorry, let's select our move tool to do this properly. Just move them off to the side here, okay? So that way they're just kind of out of your way. It doesn't matter if it's even, see how it's not really that visible, okay? It's kind of cut piece of it off. It's not actually cutting anything off. It's just not in the visible area, okay? But this will make it easy for you so that way you're not misunderstanding or everything isn't kind of cluttered on your work surface here. So I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I know that these are my decoupage pieces that I'm also going to print out, and they're scaled exactly 100% to this piece so that they will all fit perfectly just as they're supposed to. Now, let's go back over to our layers palette. Let's click that minus sign so we close that up and click on the layer group so that way we know where we're at. But I don't want to see these anymore because I'm not moving, I'm not doing anything. Okay? It just kind of cleans up your layers so that you can see things easier. The last thing I want to do is I want to put a ribbon in behind this little flower paper, which is our beige flower, that paper there. You can see that it's highlighted. I want to put a ribbon in behind there just to add a little bit more interest. And for those of you that haven't used ribbons in the past, this is a good, maybe a little tutorial as to how to use them, why to use them, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back to my Olivia Rose kit. Here's Olivia Rose. I go into the FQB. I scroll down through all the elements and stuff like that until I get to the ribbons. I like ribbon 2. Obviously I've kind of pre-done this, so I knew that was the one I wanted. I press and hold my left mouse button on ribbon 2. I drag it onto my working area in Gimp, and presto, it's now placed it in here. Okay? And again, because of the layers palette, remember I said that's where I wanted it, okay? If you wanted to move this, okay, and you thought, oops, I put it in the wrong spot. I really want this ribbon, but it's in the wrong spot, meaning the pieces of paper. I want my ribbon to come underneath my lace pink. Well, you go highlight that, press and hold your left mouse button, and just drag it down there, okay? It's very easy to do. So that way you can rearrange what visual layer of each paper is. So in looking at this, I'm saying the ribbon is a little bit too wide. I need to scale this ribbon down. It's not the right size. So again, I'm going to choose my scale tool. I am going to press and hold my left mouse button. I'm going to scale it down so I shrink it until that is about the right width of the ribbon that I want. I don't care where it's placed on here. I don't care so much about the pattern because it's very faint. I'm just looking at it as far as how the height of the ribbon here. I want to know that that is the right size here. So I'm saying, yeah, that looks good. I press scale. Okay. Again, I'll click on my move tool. And what I want is I want that ribbon to start right on that very base paper, that jacquard wine. And I want it to go to the edge over here. Well, how do I do that now? Okay. Well, let's cut this piece off that we don't need. Okay. And we do that by, again, clicking on our right mouse button, clicking on layer, and layer to boundary size is the one we're now going to click. And what it's saying is, we're going to change this to inches again. It's saying that that ribbon right now is 0.56 inches high and it's 9.29 inches wide. Well, how do I know where to cut it off? Well, I know because I created that jacquard wine piece of paper. I know that it was 5 inches wide and 7 inches tall. So let's double mouse click, left mouse click on that width. I change that to 5. Let's just move this up so that you can see the entire thing. And then I press resize. See how it just cut that off for us? So now that ribbon is the exact size I want to fit on this piece of paper. How great is that? And there you go. You have designed the card digitally whereby you could realistically print the card as it is if you wanted to. Now, it's not going to look as nice as doing it in physical paper because you don't have any shadowing on here, so you don't see any depth. It's very flat. We'll maybe look at doing an intermediate video on how to add things and do things if you want to design things digitally. But this video, I'm going to be for the confines that you are now going to print this card on physical paper and assemble it with physical pieces of paper. Okay? So, how are we going to do that? Well, we know that, let's go back up and create another piece of paper here. We're going to go File, New, and again, for most of us, we have printers that only print 8.5 by 11 or A4 size. Not a lot of us, we happen to have one, but not everybody has a wide format printer, which is 12 by 12. Okay, so I want to do that. So I press OK, and again, I've got a blank sheet of paper out here, okay, as my working thing. Now, when you print, obviously, it's only going to print this. The jacquard wine is only a 5 by 7 piece of paper. This is only 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. So we're only printing those pieces of paper. Okay, so we want to have, and this one was 3.75 by 5. So we're only printing those small pieces of paper, which is going to save you immensely on paper and on ink. But there's a specific way to do this. And what I mean by that is you want to utilize as much of the paper as you can, so that way you are getting the biggest result for yourself, where you're using the minimal amount of paper that you can and also the minimal amount of ink. Okay? How do we do that? Well, let's just start at the beginning. I know that I have this piece of paper. Okay? So let's, again, right click on it, edit, copy. Let's go on to our printing thing. Right click on it, edit, paste. Okay? And I come down here and again say, yes, please make that a layer for me so I can move it around and I can do stuff with it. Looks good. Obviously, I'm not going to print it in the center of it, so I'll just use this and I'll move it up to the top corner. Okay? One thing to note when you're printing. Number one is most of you don't have what we call borderless printing, meaning it'll print right to the very edge of the paper. Some of you do, some of you don't. It's easy to just simply put it up in the top corner. Just leave yourself a little bit of space here, because those areas, for those of you that cannot print borderless, this area will not print on your printer. It'll always leave that white space there. This is the printable area. Okay? The next thing is is obviously I have these other two papers, okay, that I want to print. So let's just move on to this paper and let's see what happens here. So I know I want to add this paper. I right click on it, I press edit, I press copy, I go onto here, edit, and paste. So again, I come down here and say, yes, please create a layer for me. Okay. Now, as you can see, you're thinking, okay, I can already see what's going on here. This isn't going to work. These are overlapping. This is where the beauty of this comes in, and this is where you want, this is what the things that you're going to want to do. We want to take this and flip it on its side. Give it a spin, a quarter of a spin, so that it's, instead of being vertical, it'll be horizontal. We right click on it, okay? We go to layer, and we go to transform, and we want to rotate 90 degrees clockwise. So again, we're choosing these submenus, and only when we get to the selection that is the one that we want, that's when we press our left mouse button, and there it goes. It changed it right there for you. Okay? So now, because of the way I've arranged it, now I'm going to go to my big jacquard, do the same thing. Again, go to layer, transform, rotate 90 degrees clockwise, then I press my left mouse button. Look at that. Magically, I now have enough room to print both these papers on one page. Okay? So, here's another great trick that I'm going to show you. So it's going to make it easy for you to cut out. Okay? When we go up to our move tool, remember how when we did our scale tool, there's all these other tools that are underneath it that you can also select if you want to. The move tool has one called align. Okay? So press and hold your left mouse button when you're on the move tool. See how align comes up? So choose alignment. That is now our tool instead of our move tool. Okay? And what we want to do, this says align relative to the active layer. Well, we know this is the active layer of jacquard wine because it's in black, right? Okay? Well, I want to align it to this lace pink paper. So I simply left mouse click it on my pink lace paper, and see how it brought up 4 little squares, one in each of the corners? That means that's my secondary selection. Then I come over here and see how the first one says align left edge of target. So basically what I'm saying is leave this paper where it is. I want to align this one over to the left so that these two left edges line up perfectly. And I click that button, and magic upon magic, there it is. So these two, when you run your paper trimmer, you're going to be able to line that up, and you're going to be able to slice this one edge all the way down, knowing that these two papers are perfectly lined up on their left edge. That's going to make it really easy for you to cut out. Okay? So, we also see, now let's go back up to this, alignment tool. We're done with the alignment tool. So let's press and hold our left mouse button and click move. Okay? So now we're back on our move. And we kind of look at this paper and we say, kind of getting full, right? Okay? So, well, let's just create a new piece of paper. And we click our inches. It's 8.5 by 11. Perfect. Here we go. We've got another one. So what else do we have on here? Well, we have this piece of paper. So right click, edit, copy. Go to our new one. Right click, edit, paste. And we come down and say, yes, please make that its own layer. Let's just put that up in the top corner just for now. Now let's go back here. What do we have left? We have our ribbon, and we have our layer group, which is all of our main element. Okay? Well, our ribbon's pretty small. We'd be able to tuck that somewhere. Let's deal with our main elements here. Okay? So let's come down here, and you don't want to highlight the entire layer group and copy the whole contents of it. This now, because everything is being resized this way, we're not doing anything more with it. We're just going to print. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. We just want to copy each individual item and paste. And the reason we want to do that, and we click yes, please create a new layer. The reason we want to do that is because we want them as each individual layer so we can move them around individually. Okay? So we also want this item here, copy, whoops, sorry. We want this item here, edit, copy, and edit, paste. Okay, and then we click yes, I want that as its own layer. We'll just take and put that one up here. We go back to this. We want to highlight that layer, so we choose it on our layers palette. It has the yellow dotted box around it. We know that that's the one we're going to be working with. Right click, edit, copy, come back here, right click, edit, paste, click our layer to say yes, move that around. Lastly, we want to select our top flower, right click, edit, copy, go back to our printing sheet, right click, edit, paste, and we click yes, please create that as a layer. Whoops. Let's just see how we can edit, undo. Awesome, right? And we'll just move that flower up over here. And lastly, we want to grab our ribbon. Okay? Now, let's stop here for a second. Well, actually, let's grab our ribbon for 1 second here. Ribbon, edit, copy. I'm going to go back here. Okay? I'm going to see if the ribbon will fit on this page, and I'll show you why in just 1 second. I'm going to go edit and paste. And I go, yes, I want it to be its own layer. Okay, putting it in between here, we can do that if we want. Like, not a big deal. That would probably fit, but it's getting pretty fine if you think, I don't know if I like that because I'm worried that it's, there's not enough room there. Again, we can turn this and put it in this blank white space over here. And how do we do that? We right click on it, we choose layer, we choose transform, 90 degrees clockwise, and now we can move that over here. Again, we're filling up our sheet so that it's very easy to cut. Now, again, when we have this over here and we're like, I could try and line it up as best I can with my eyes. My eyes aren't good enough, I'll be honest. So let's line that up properly. Let's take because these two are the same size, we know they're the same size because that's how we created them, that it is 5 inches wide. Let's choose this as our active item. We want to go to our move tool, press and hold our left mouse button and choose the alignment tool. Okay, now that is the one we want to stay put. This is the one we want to align with it. So we press our left mouse button on our ribbon and we say align to top edge of target. So we choose that button. Boom, there it is. Okay, again, let's go over to it's as our alignment tool. Press and hold that. Choose move, so we've turned it back into our move tool. Now when you cut this out with your cutter, again, you're gonna run this through your little cutting machines. Your paper trimmers. You'll be able to easily cut the top off and not worry about cutting either of these off. You'll be able to zip this down and you know that these edges are aligned. You'll be able to zip down here and know that the bottoms are aligned. How nice is that, right? Makes it super easy for you when this prints out in order to cut it out. Okay, now let's return back to our element sheet. This is our element sheet, and if you are fussy cutting, no problem. There you go, you can just print it out, right? Not a big deal. If you are using a Cricut, okay, remember, right now I have this as an 8.5 by 11. Remember with Cricut, and only with Cricut, Brother Scan and Cut, Silhouette, this does not apply. But with Cricut, the printable area for print and cut, the only size of paper that you can use is, the maximum size is 6 3/4 inches wide and 9 1/4 inches tall. Okay? So, file, new, inches. So, 6 3/4 by 9 1/4. Okay? So if you are using a Cricut, you want to make sure that all that fits on here, okay? And just because I've done this before, I know that it does, okay? So if you're using a Cricut and you know you're going to use a Cricut to cut out your elements, do not first create an 8.5 by 11. Simply create a 6 3/4 by 9 1/4, and off you go. Then that way you put your elements on this and you'll know how many you can put on here safely and use print and cut. Okay? So we are at very, very near the end. That is it. You can now, when you want to, you can choose this as file and you can print right from here, okay? So you can see how that can be done. And then you choose this sheet, file, print right from this program. And you would have, you're only printing out the pieces that you've created to create your card and to do your decoupaging. You're only printing that out. Isn't that saving? And you've got exactly the size of pattern you want in your papers. You've got exactly the size of element you want, whether you want it larger, smaller, whatever you wanted. You have complete control now over what size everything is and what size the pattern is. The last thing that we're going to do is we want to create templates for you so that you'll always be able to do this. How do you do that? Well, let's go to this Jacquard wine. We know that we created this as a 5x7. Come up to File, press your left mouse button, and click Save As. Okay, this window is going to come up for you, and it's going to ask you, where do you want to save this in your computer? Okay, so I want to save it on my desktop. I'll just say that, okay? And when I click, and at the very top, it's going to have a name. So I'm going to call this 5x7 template, okay? And I press save. It now has taken this, even though it has this paper on here, it doesn't matter, okay? So when I go up here, next time when I'm creating my card, and I know I have a 5x7, if I don't want to have to recreate that file, new, create 5x7, if you forgot or whatever, it'll just make it easy that this is a template. You know it's always 5x7. I go up to File, Open, and it says, okay, where in your computer do you want to look? And I know it's on my desktop. There's my 5x7 template. I highlight it, I click Open, and there you go. There's my 5x7 template. Even though it has this Jacquard paper on here, I can certainly, I know by pressing the delete the layer, I can eliminate it if you want to. Select undo, but I don't have to if I don't want to. I can simply go in and add another piece of paper. Let's choose the big floral. Okay, again, I press and hold my left mouse button. I drag it on top of here. Boom. See how I now have this on here? Wow, that's even the right size and everything. That looks really pretty. But now you would, again, start over and recreate. There's my 5x7, okay? That is my template for my 5x7. My next one is this one, right? So whether, now File, Save As, you can call it whatever you want. Again, I'll save it to my desktop. Maybe this is second layer, or you want to call it 4.75 by 6.75 template, okay? Press enter, whoops. Press enter, and away you go. Now you have that saved that you can bring up the next time you're creating a 5x7 card. See how easy that is? So when you create it, the only thing you have to do is create a new blank workspace of your 8.5 by 11, and that way then you're making each individual paper exactly like you want. You can even, you don't really have to save the print ones, but I would, if you're using Cricut, save File, Save As, and I call it Cricut Print and Cut. So I know that when I bring this up, I don't have to remember, now what was that size again? I know that that's saved as a template. So when I put my elements on, I know that that is the size, that's the max size I can use, that's a max amount I can put on a piece of paper. Then that way I can define how I want to do this. So folks, I hope that this video has given you so much now availability, and so much, it has opened your world crafting wise, because you're going to be able to now only print out the pieces of paper that you want. You can scale things to the exact size you want them for your project, because maybe you're making a 4¼ by 5½ inch card. Maybe you're making a 6x6. Maybe you're making a folding card. One of our design team members, Lisa Shaw, she makes these great dimensional cards. Paul Ford has also done them and shown you how to do them, where it's a Z fold card. You can have all kinds of different ones. Well, you could make templates for each of those cards. You could say, here's my Z fold template. So when I save this, this is like you file, let's just say this was the right size. File, save as, and save this as Z fold front cover. Okay? So if you've designed it out, you save that. Well, now every time you make a Z fold card, you just go open that template. You don't have to remember what the sizes are. It's all done for you. Boom, 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 right? You just simply add these things to it, and you can create the card so quickly now, and you now have the ability to print properly so that you can conserve paper and you can conserve ink. I hope you found this video helpful. Please, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, look down in the bottom right-hand corner where you'll see the Knitwit Collections logo. Please click on that. That'll subscribe you to our YouTube channel. That'll make you aware every time we have a new video that goes up. And as well, give us a thumbs up on the video. Leave us a comment below. Let us know if there's something you don't understand. Let us know if you liked the video. Let us know what you liked about the video. It's always good for us to receive feedback, so that way if we do things in the future, I know that what things you're looking for or what you did like, and so that I'll focus on those things. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope that you have now become a master of Gimp so that you can easily accomplish the things that are necessary for you. Thanks again, and happy crafting.